Hi, everybody. It's Ron again, and welcome to another installment where we look at the headlines and see if we can add some context or commentary. So let's get right to it. Here we have, in the last week or so, last couple of weeks, we see all this news about the war in Gaza up there. It's all gone. And now we're on to political trials and travails for President Trump. Here we have the MAGA lawyers, that's the acronym, Make America Great Again, this Trump slogan. And apparently they're turning state's evidence in Georgia, and they are telling on the president, and this supposedly would be bad for Donald Trump's defense. Of course, we have to remember, if Trump gets into the White House, we have these executive pardons that have been used more and more freely over the years by all the different presidents. But that only applies to the federal crimes. So all this stuff they're trying to get him with in the states, in Georgia and also in New York, two states that have, let's just say, some liberal higher-ups, and they are really going after these issues with Trump, and many of them very justifiably, I'm sure. So what is there's another context here. How did this news blow everybody else, all the other news off the top of the site, and we're back to Trump travails? It's because this website is Drudge Report. I talked about Drudge in the past, the very first video of this series. I think there's a link to it it'll be in the description. Talks about why I chose Drudge Report. He was hated because he broke the news and forced the mainstream media in the late 1990s to cover the Monica Lewinsky stuff. Mainstream news media were saying, no big deal, we're not covering it. He, by virtue of a web page on the internet, which was thought as silly, small fried junk, it could never be journalism or compete in that realm. Just by posting these links and his little scoops, very small little pieces of text, he forced the mainstream media to follow this. Now, so he was branded after that as a kind of a right winger, playing this up. And there's lots of sites that copy the Drudge Report, both on the left, on the right, that are just aggregators of interesting headlines. And the news media, the big news media, does look at these things, and sometimes what he chooses does drive some of the coverage. Okay, so in 2016, it was thought Drudge went very soft on Trump and didn't put on a lot of headlines that played up all the problems with Trump, his gaffes, the terrible things he had said, the kind of scattershot nature of his mind and what he was like, the corruption in the past, the way he used to seem like he was an arch liberal, and then suddenly he's a Republican, these sort of things. Then in 2020, he did change his tune, and he put a lot of stuff on there that maybe changed the views of some Republicans or some right-wingers against Trump. And you'll find this if you go back to 2016, where there's people kind of blaming Drudge for saying, Trump wouldn't have had his luck that he did if Drudge had not gone easy on him in just posting these links. So that shows just some dummy posting links on a website can have some impact. Again, this shows now, so what this means, back to this. So that's the preamble. So what this means is, I've been talking about the smoke-filled room in the past few weeks, where there obviously seems to be a movement of Republican bigwigs in the back rooms, the smoke-filled rooms. Like 100 years ago or more, in the late 19th century, you had the guys smoking a cigar, the fat cats in the back room who would choose the nominee or really make a decision. It wasn't really up to the primaries. It was the bigwigs considering everything and choosing the person they wanted to protect their interests. So we have a smoke-filled room now where we have the governor of Iowa who is endorsing DeSantis, in these primary challenges that are coming up. DeSantis sort of has failed as a candidate. Before that, he was thought to have failed. There's other movements like that where people are questioning whether Trump is the right person, and it seems like other primary candidates are being floated now. And this may be part of it with Drudge adding in, and we'll see how much he pushes these anti-Trump articles, or these articles that are showing the trouble Trump is in. We'll see how he promotes it to the audience here. Here's a Truth Social. That was that alternate social media that Trump was going to go on because he was banned from Twitter, etc., etc. Excuse me. Trump's sister dead at 86. Okay. Again, he's playing up here. Trump's sister said Trump doesn't read, is cruel, can't trust him, he's a brat. We might... I mentioned this before, and we'll see this in some of these other articles. You do have the situation where a lot of supporters don't care about that. They like it because Trump shakes up the system and is a crazy wild man who is not going to be constrained by people saying, oh, he might have had some corruption, or that's something that would have destroyed or upset the candidacy of another candidate who was playing the role of he's just the perfect everyman, and then they bring up these scandals. Trump is all scandals, and the people seem to love it, or his supporters seem to love it. A very strange situation. Here we have Liz Cheney. This may be part of the smoke-filled room too. Liz Cheney, eldest daughter of the former Vice President Dick Cheney, who was the Vice President during George W. Bush, the second George W. Bush in the early 2000s. At one point, he was reviled as a terrible warmonger and evil guy. He's certainly not a personable person, Dick Cheney. But after Dick Cheney was out of office, his daughter became more prominent in politics and has become a very prominent critic of Donald Trump, even kind of run out of her seat in Wyoming by pro-Trump people. And so the Cheneys have sort of become the champions of the anti-Trumpers in the Republican Party. Not exactly successfully so far, because Trump is wildly popular. But this is maybe part of the smoke-filled room too, because trying to split off the leadership, at least some of the leadership of the Republican Party, and they're collaborating with Trump as opposed to the other narrative where where they would want to promote another primary challenger. It's another kind of anti-Trumpish sort of a thing here on Drudge, where obviously it's from the Washington Post, which is a very left-leaning publication, but talking about MAGA-dominated state, Republican parties plagued by infighting, party woes. We just had an election last week where some of the issues of this side of the party, that not only being against abortion, but the states that they were trying to, once the Supreme Court protections that allowed women to have abortions and disallowed states from restricting that, once that ruling was overturned, it simply allowed state by state to have their own regulations. Some states even tried to make it easier, which they can do now. But other states decided to be very draconian in a crazy way that I think is probably out of kilter with the voting public. My thing I always say, and this is a very reductive, wide thing, but Americans in general and the American way is the desire for more liberty. And you can say that, less government, but it's mainly more liberty. In the same way Americans want to carry and shoot their guns, they want to be able to have the freedom to have abortions, apparently, because the candidates in the states and the areas that were going to put more restrictions on abortion, they lost out in the last election. Moody cuts U.S. credit rating to negative. This is part of the idea that how long can this last? U.S. went from a balanced budget under Clinton in the late 90s, and now that budget is running over $1 trillion in deficit a year, with a cumulative national debt of over something like 33 trillion. And this is it's been caused by an inflation of the money supply, not just spending, but adding money that eases credit, keeps interest rate low, and has prevented the cyclical downturns or recessions that usually you have about every 10 years. But we've gone way beyond that point this time. The last big downturn was in 2009, around that era, and we're past the time when we really should have a little correction. I've heard a lot about this in some of the circles, I keep track of, I try to keep track of both the left and the right, and the right makes a lot of fun of this situation where there was cocaine found in the White House, and there were apparently lots of suspects, but in all these cases, just like when that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in the cell, supposedly, all the cameras happened to be off. So in the White House, in the most, the area with the greatest security on earth, they just can't get the data one way or another to find out who this cocaine belonged to. And of course, people will throw out conspiracy theories that it has to do with the president's family, this sort of a thing. So, I don't know. You would think they would be able to they have cameras everywhere and they would know who's coming in and out, and they could narrow that down, but they can't. Here we have Secret Service protecting Biden granddaughter fires. They fire shots after attempted vehicle break-in. Kind of cool. I just wanted to mention that the show The West Wing, if you're a foreigner, if you're not an American, and a lot of people who watch this show are, you might want to watch a show called The West Wing if you're interested in the American political system. And that's a show that I know has been shown to some developing countries, to groups that are attempting to develop a sort of Western style balance of power or parliamentary system democracy. It's a fantastic, fun show, a great cast, really interesting. And this reminded me of one of the most memorable episodes, I think, in the West Wing show, when the president's daughter was kidnapped briefly for a time, or appeared to be kidnapped. And you'd think, oh, that's really silly and fanciful, and it's a crazy show that's, that's just one of those silly drama. But no, it's super well done, seems to be accurate, really shows, the balance of powers and how things are done in Washington. Fascinating, fun show, if you're looking for something like that. New space race. I got to adjust my air conditioning here. Okay. That's better. I get all worked up as I'm doing these things. Okay. And especially this sort of thing, new space race. Will China beat U.S. back to the moon? It's possible. I'm fine as long as we get some new pictures. I always want to see new pictures of the moon or Mars. Of course, I know a lot of people. You don't want to reduce people to their race, ethnicity, background, culture, but people do that in Twitter already. People used to not want to just be seen as black or what they do with their genitals, but they got it right in their Twitter bio. So I guess that's their personality now. But I do know one thing. This is anecdotal experience of a regular old white guy like myself. This sort of story is super interesting to me, and I might have a next door neighbor, same kind of house that I grew up in or lived in, maybe a richer family than I am. They drive better cars, but they're black. They might read this and be a little bit uninterested, because definitely, usually if you're not white in the United States, you sort of wonder why there's all these hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on this sort of thing out in space when we still have quite a bit of inequity in our own country, historical inequity that is very entrenched. Many people just otherwise the same in every respect, or even of a higher status than I am, but because of their race, they have a different sensitivity to that. And I guess I don't as much, or didn't as much. Hezbollah increases attacks on Israel. We've been following this sort of idea. Israel is fighting in the south in Gaza. The north part of Lebanon that borders on Israel is controlled by Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed terrorist group. And there's maybe hopes by some who don't like Israel that another front in the war would be opened on Israel there. People arguing, who cares? Some guy I never heard of passed away. That's too bad. Pets don't actually make people happier, improve well-being. One of those studies, you never know what, when the media reports about studies like this, never know if it's a valid study or they're just cherry picking something to make a headline that someone will click on, just like we have right now. Study authors assessed a total of 767 people on 3 different occasions to see if pets make people feel better. I did this just pop into my mind as something interesting, because this is one of those things we assume our health and well-being is made better by pets, or our health and well-being is improved by our positive thinking. But I think mainly the things we think and we feel in our health, they're way, way deep down in our bones, in our cells, by little things that are happening at that level that we really don't have any control over. It's a luck of the die and our genetics, and we just may be fated to feel and to have the fate of our decaying body to kill us someday. Boy, that got dark. I didn't mean to get that dark, but so whew. Oh, don't you hate this? Do you not hate this? These things, and you have to click the bicycle or the motorcycle. Other sites, this seems like a very, very old-fashioned way to verify traffic. And then often it doesn't come in. Oh, yeah. I hate these. Hate them. And I'll tell you, I had a glib thing. So here's the headline, or at least the one that was presented to me. Naked couple had sex in front of children on Florida causeway. Luckily, I was foiled in my poor joke by this terrible, stupid verification thing. It's especially bad when you're doing something on an app on a phone and you can't really see the image clearly. AI predicts heart attacks a year in advance. It could predict. Okay. I don't like AI that much. I read the great quote by Noam Chomsky, who said that it was, and now I'm going to misquote it. He said it was a plagiarism tool, not because all it does is it's aggregated all the stuff. These big companies, Microsoft, Google, we've put all of our stuff online, and they've used their search engine to catalog it, and now they're using it to replace us in our jobs with our content. Because when you make up this text that's supposed to be so good, or this art, all it is a conglomeration, like a happy medium of all the stuff that it's found online. It throws away the outliers, and it assumes that the body of text that's there is the right thing. I'm not sure how much it's really understanding. The only understanding part is in the prompt part. That's what's been improved. But I think the background there's nothing creative going on there. Like Noam Chomsky says, it's plagiarism. And I hope they make it so you can never copyright this. Copyright that AI junk up. Bezos and Sanchez trolled over uncomfortable Vogue shoot. I don't know, if you were really this rich, I'm not sure why you'd want to have a super high public profile like this. It seems like you just want to keep your head down. The time's coming when, the younger generation feels like more and more there shouldn't be billionaires, and we should give all their money to the government. You want to give, even if you think that's true. I mean, do you really want to give all that money to the Congress, who's run up a $33 trillion, national debt? I think we should try to keep any money out of their hands. They have demonstrated they're not good stewards of our money. Zaslav faces rebellion over canceling third Warner Brothers movie. Interesting, they canceled Batgirl for a tax write-off. They canceled a Scooby-Doo animated movie, and then they canceled a Coyote Roadrunner movie. I don't know. There's enough old stuff to watch. I'm not even really that interested in the new stuff. You hear about all this Marvels and, I don't know. It doesn't seem that interesting. Catch up on the old classics first before you watch any of this new junk, I think. That's my advice. And more on AI here. Record Thanksgiving travel that's coming up. It's the American holiday on, I think, the 23rd of this month. Yeah, we always have some turkey, some unusual food even for us. You have it once a year usually. Here we have more gambling. This is weird. I don't know what this is. Is this true? When I was a kid, I never got medicine for anything. They never even heard of this AAHD. School class sizes were smaller, so no kids were ever pegged as having AAHD or hyperactivity and had to be medicated because class sizes were too big and some kids couldn't be attended to properly. So here we have I never even thought about I couldn't sleep when I was a kid or something. I don't know. Drug your kids. I heard of this when I was young. My father had their friends. In America, we take long road trips often. You drive someplace all day and stay there all night, and eventually you get down to Florida or someplace. So we always enjoyed those long road trips with the family. But apparently, some families did not, and they would give their kids sleeping pills so they'd sleep all day, and then give them pills so they sleep all night. So they just didn't want to hear their own kids yammering away. So I don't know. So weird people. And that's about all I have for today, except please don't forget about my book. It's my new novel, There Are Still Unknown Places. It's about the desire, the drive to go to the furthest places on earth with people who are living here in Thailand, both foreigners who've come here to work and local people who are living in a changing world, changing city, changing country. And it's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, and if you read it, I'd appreciate if you're interested in it. Let me know what you think of it. So, and I kept forgetting to do this. I have this great pack of cards. This is the Art of War cards. The other day, a few days ago, I had this advice for you to loot a burning house. That may not be the best advice to follow, but today I'll pick another one and we'll see. I haven't looked at this. Okay, this is better. Create something from nothing. That's some good advice for today. Demonstrate your willingness to bluff so your adversary doubts your real actions. Oh, so this means something like puff yourself up. I don't know if that's good advice in business either. You know, we talk about the idea of big hat, no cattle. People who posture with a lot of bling, but they really don't have anything to back it up. So anyway, I'm going on and on now. That's today's show. I will see you tomorrow for more headlines, more context. Bye-bye.